our first story here. Fox News has said they will match employee donations to Satanic Temple, the Trevor Project, Planned Parenthood, and the SPLC. Unbelievable. All the organizations, of course, that we would hope Fox would be against because they stand for all of the things that Fox's audience wants destroyed in the United States. But here we are. Whistleblowers from Fox News have revealed that the company uses an app called Fox Giving to match employee donations to approved organizations, which again include the Satanic Temple, the Trevor Project, which, by the way, for those of you who have been following the show, know has a chat room portal that they advertise to minors that allows for you to speak to an adult about your sexual identity. And if you hit the escape button 3 times, it clears your entire browser history. Cool.
Is that the one with that Daniel Radcliffe speaks for on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if that's not bad enough, of course, they're also matching donations to Planned Parenthood and the SPLC. They're willing to match donations up to $1,000. So the whistleblowers took the story to The Blaze, which reports that Fox is going to subsidize some of the very activist groups that despise and seek to ruin the network's viewers, evidencing a complete disregard and hatred for its core audience. We've seen a lot of shenanigans from the people over at Fox lately. Them getting rid of Tucker Carlson was certainly, in my estimation, a blunder on their part. I also think it was bad for the American people. The way I've described this in the past is that CNN tells you what you're supposed to believe, and then Fox exists to tell you what you're allowed to believe. If you're not going to swallow what they're trying to give you over at CNN, Fox offers you this alternative that's still somewhat market safe, it's still somewhat PC, and they tell you this is the outer limit, this is the boundary. Once you've hit this, you can't go further to the right, or else you're a nut job and a conspiracy theorist. Part of the value of Tucker Carlson on that network was that he pushed that Overton window further to the right. They got rid of him. That is one step that Fox News has taken, and what I would argue is a long series of steps to insult their core audience and harm the movement. What do you guys think?
My first question is, what did Fox say in response to the Blaze piece? Did they put out a statement? Did they deny it? Did they confirm it?
I haven't seen any comments from them yet. And I will say there are a lot of corporations that offer this type of match giving, right? So Google did this for a long time. And I know that there were cases of employees opting to donate to conservative causes. And Google said, no, we won't do it. And so for me, I don't personally know the whistleblower at Fox, but I would love to see what organizations Fox is denying. If they're saying yes to the SPLC, if they're saying yes to Planned Parenthood, if they're saying yes to the Satanic Temple, who are they also saying yes to, and who are they saying no to?
It's just hard for me to believe that Fox would do that, particularly with an organization like SPLC. I mean, this is an organization that once called Dr. Ben Carson a hate monger. And so I'm a little skeptical. I'd like to see what Fox has said in response, because there are a lot of people that are mad at Fox, and they come forward, they give a story, and next thing you know, people run with it. So I'm skeptical all the time, and I'm skeptical about this too.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a prudent approach to take, to wonder what their statement is, and I guess we'll see how they respond to this. I've definitely been disturbed by some of what Fox has done in the past year, but I would agree with you, that's probably a safe course of action.
And clearly, I'm upset about Tucker Carlson not being there.
Yeah,
I announced for president on April 20th, which turned out to be Tucker Carlson's neck to the last show. By the way, I started not to announce on April 20th because that's Hitler's birthday. I'm a little suspicious about that. And we started to put it off for 1 week. I'm happy we didn't, because then we would have been on somebody else's show. We ended up being on the highest rated show in the prime time.
So you believe that Fox is essentially, it's the outer limits of what you're allowed to believe publicly without being considered like far right, like do not pass go, do not become OAN.
Well, I think that's one way of looking at it. They're sort of, they're conservative. I think they're probably more in line with establishment conservatism, but people see them as safer, I think. So Fox, as compared to, an organization that you mentioned, One America Network, or some of these other networks and online publications, has somewhat of an increased level of credibility in the mainstream, I would say.
Tim, I have to raise a question.
Yes, of course.
Do we have to question this?
Do we call him Tim?
We're all Tim tonight.
We're all Tim tonight.
We're all Tim.
Okay, I see.
It's Tim time.
What about me?
You're Larry.
I'm the black.
You're the one and only.
If you want to be Tim,
I'm the black Tim of white supremacy.
Yes.
Look, hey, if you want to be the black Tim of white supremacy, you're more than welcome.
You can join us. To both of my Tims. The thing is, I do feel as though I have to raise a question of First Amendment rights, right? So, and I'm not an expert in this, but if a company offers to match your giving, if it's wrong for Google to say we won't match your gift to a right-wing organization we disagree with, is it wrong for Fox to say we won't give money to a left-wing organization that you choose to patronize? It is surprising to me that someone who wants to give money to the SPLC works at Fox, but you never know. Some people want to bring it to media.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people
impossible.
in media who are on the left. Just like there are people who work for some left-wing organizations who are more conservative and just don't talk about it. I would suspect it's the case that there are left-wing people who work for Fox and aren't super open about it, or maybe they are more open about it. I've never been to their studio. What I will say is there's two different ways to look at your question here. There's the legal question and there's the moral question. I can't answer the legal question. I'm sure Larry was more equipped to answer that one. But in terms of the moral question, I don't think there's anything wrong with Fox saying, no, we would be unwilling to match a donation to organizations that despise our viewers and everything we stand for.
I mean,
but legally, I'm curious what you'd have to say about that.
It's a private company.
I
would see no reason why they can't have a policy like that. We're not going to match to organizations we don't like and that assault our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So you brought up a story with Google and you asked if it's okay in both circumstances. I'm curious what the fallout ended up being for Google.
Well, with Google, I know this story personally. For some of these employees, they battled through and got the donations, but obviously then had a target on their back, right? They were then a band of people who believed in the wrong organization. So it is a question of what the repercussions are. I tend to agree with you. If they're a private company, perhaps they should have value, and I think it would show integrity to what they presume to represent in this country. Of course, I think Fox has done some good things. I think there are things that I question. Of course, it is a major corporation, and I think ultimately it serves its bottom line, which is a reality of their business. And so it's not. That,
Imagine being like in an industry full of people where you're like maybe you're like the one right wing guy at CNN. Imagine being the one left wing guy at Fox News. You're just the one guy hanging out there. That doesn't sound like
well, there are people like that. I mean, that's what Project Veritas found out about CNN.
Yeah.
A couple of people were on tape and they were upset about Jeffrey Zucker and about how every morning he would have a 9:00 meeting or whatever hour it was, basically telling people what to say. And this guy was ticked off about it. He said he had a personal vendetta against Donald Trump, tell us what to say to the exclusion of other issues. There are people within probably every organization that feels that way.
Do you think that the trajectory Fox has been on, where they've lost some of the support, since the election and what's going on now, so obviously since Tucker has gone, does that fall in line kind of with Project Veritas since the exit of James O'Keefe, where I see people, like I still follow Project Veritas on social media, but I don't see the same kind of vigor for the cause that you saw there before? Like it feels like they've lost the momentum that they had before?
Well, in my opinion, it's hard to say that people like Mark Levin or Sean Hannity are not aggressive and not passionate. They are. But I do think Fox underestimated how popular Tucker Carlson was and how much he meant to the whole organization. It reminds me of when Johnny Carson was on late night, and when he'd go on vacation, the Today Show or whatever show it was in the morning, I think it's Today Show, would have lower ratings.
Oh, I meant more like the audience vigor. Like I don't see the same. Like I felt like the support behind those organizations from their audience feels like it's been.
The ratings show that.
Yeah,
the ratings are down almost 50%.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good point. For me, Fox is interesting for a lot of reasons. One of the things that I would question is if the audience are reacting to the content, and the content is ultimately driven by executive decisions. And of course, we'd have to kind of examine what's going on with the Murdoch family to completely understand the direction that Fox is taking. And I'm not sure how to speculate on that, but I know that, as leadership changes hands, of course, there can be questions about the direction of the network, right? I also find that, again, I think there's a place for conservative media, of course, and of course there should be conservative voice in mainstream media, but because we tend to work on alternative media, we work on, the internet, emerging media, the thing that I love about conservative audiences is that they are always willing to seek new sources. And I find that to be refreshing. In some ways, Fox has to compete with more because we are growing stronger than CNN sort of mainstream media does, because I just don't see the same parallel to what we are building here on the left.
They take their CNN, they set it and forget it and just use that as their source for everything, as their source of information for everything. Whereas people who tend to be right-leaning are excited to go out and explore new avenues of people to listen to.
Anecdotally, that's my conclusion.
I think, Brett, the miscalculation was that Fox historically, they've seen big names depart. Bill O'Reilly left. Train kept on going. Megyn Kelly left, train kept on going. Lou Dobbs, a lot of people have left, and nothing happened. And I think they assumed that the organization was bigger than any one individual, and they underestimated how big Tucker Carlson was.
Yeah. I mean, he was absolutely massive, and people really loved him. Part of what I valued so much about him were the things I laid out earlier about the fact that he was willing to entertain and even promote ideas that other people in the mainstream weren't. What he was saying about January 6th and Ray Epps were things that I was very surprised to hear on television.
And about Ukraine.
Ukraine. I mean, and these are things that really lended credibility to this narrative, not just because he was saying it on television. That's huge in terms of optics, but also because he was supplying good evidence for this story. And so when he released the Jan 6 tapes on television, I thought that was a massive victory for truth and for the fight against the hegemonic narrative that the left-wing media forces the American people to stomach. And so when he left, you had a lot of conservatives saying things like, ultimately, this is really good for Tucker Carlson because he's better off without Fox. And I don't think anyone was or is doubtful that he's going to be tremendously successful at whatever he does.
He already has been.
Exactly. But what was really sad for me was that even though I was well aware of the fact that he'd be successful, there is something about the credibility that television lends to a person that makes their ideas more palatable to the American people.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.